All right, we're going to be doing, again, a little teaching on the Hebrew roots of end-time prophecy. We believe that there's a context to the Scriptures. Everything that Jesus said was as the Jewish Messiah. And this is what he said 2,000 years ago in Luke 21, verse 11. There will be great earthquakes in various places, famines, pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs. From where? From where? Okay, from heaven. That means look up. We're always looking down. Make sure we look up. That's what I'm going to try to direct your attention to tonight. Look up. God said in the generation before he returns, look up. Everyone say look up. Very good. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 to 13, we have the sixth seal open. If you haven't gotten a teaching on Revelation, we've done plenty of it, and I even have a summary called The Most Logical Timeline of Revelation. All right, that's all uploaded free on YouTube, but if you wanted to dig deeper, we have a whole series at discover.org.au for that. So here's what the sixth seal represents, and I believe that we're either already in it or we're just waiting any moment for it to open. All right? And yet, I don't believe it's the tribulation. Not yet. Not the time of tribulation at the time of Jacob's trouble. Revelation chapter 6, verse 12, I watched as the Lamb opened the sixth seal. Here is the order of events. Number one, a powerful earthquake struck. In the Greek, a mega quake. Maybe it was the Japanese tsunami. Maybe it was the Haiti earthquake, which was the most fatal earthquake in human history. 300,000 people died in that. So number one, a powerful earthquake. Number two, the sun turned as black as sackcloth made of hair, and the full moon turned as red as blood. Already explained that there's a very easy understanding of that. The sun is timed to go dark every time that there is an eclipse. That's only possible from the vantage point of Earth. God made the distance of the Earth, the size of the moon, and all of those things to correlate so that we could have a perfect total solar eclipse. We're the only place in the universe that we're aware of that can see a total solar eclipse. Not only that, we also have lunar eclipses. And that's when the moon appears to turn red. All right? Second order of event. Third, we haven't talked much about the stars fell from the sky to the earth like figs, dropping from a fig tree when it is shaken by a strong wind. And we could conjecture about that, but we're not going to touch on it today. We just want to touch on those first two things. Number one, a powerful earthquake. People say, well, earthquakes happen all the time. But look at the graph. This is not a prophetic graph. This is the USGS graph of worldwide deadly and destructive earthquakes. And since the last 100 years, more than 100 years now, 113 years, can you see that there is an increase in megaquakes? Obviously, we're not making it up. Jesus says this is a prelude to the tribulation. It's not yet the tribulation. The seals are not tribulation seals. They're pre-tribulation seals. Next, starting from this year, and we're already coming towards the end of this year, starting at 2013, there will be not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, but 8 signs in the heavens that we're already aware of before the 70th anniversary of Israel. And why is 70 important? Because Israel was given 70 years in Babylonian captivity. Israel was given 70 years from the time that Jesus was born to the time that its temple was destroyed. So there's something significant about the fact that Israel is about to turn 70 years old since it was born again in the 1940s. And you can count 1947 from the UN Resolution 181 or 1948 when they actually had a war and declared independence on the 14th of May 1948. Either way, whatever date it is, to be exact, we're not sure, but we're coming up to this landmark 70 years. Exciting? Goosebumps? Exciting stuff. See, for many, many years, people have simply said, well, we're not sure when the end will be. We're not sure if the Bible prophecies are coming true because each generation looks at the world that it lives in and then it says, oh, this is the catastrophe, this is the terrible thing that's going on, and it must relate to the Bible. And then, of course, it didn't. Like the generation who lived through World War I must have thought that's the end of the world, and it wasn't. because Israel hadn't come back yet. It was the wrong timeline. Anybody who read the Bible could have explained that to them. But see, people don't look at the Bible, they look at their own circumstances and think, oh, World War I, many people die, must be the end. Then, World War II. Hitler was a great evil dictator, killed 6 million Jews. It looked like a terrible time. It's called the Holocaust. And certainly there would have been Christians at that time who said, look at that, this is the end. And they go out with the placards and they shout the end of the world. And so the world has become almost immunized. They've become hardened. They've become calloused to the true signs which are explained in Daniel, Ezekiel, the book of Revelation. There is a plain order of events. And that's what we must believe. Not just there's some catastrophe, there's some hurricane, there's some earthquake. There is a real clear order. And that's why God was very detailed. The book of Revelation is almost difficult to understand until you proceed towards the timeline and the clock starts ticking. And then you realize, my goodness, it's all falling into place. So there has to be some objective signs. And signs in the sky, like the darkening of the sun, the moon turning into blood, these things are not fudgeable. You can't fake it. They've been timed. And in the history of 2,000 years of the church age, there have only been 7 lunar tetrads, or 7 times where the moon turns to blood exactly on the feast days of the Lord. And that's what God is talking about, that there will be signs in the heaven that correlate to the things that He wrote about and predicted in the Bible. Those are the signs we're to look for. And so there are now, that we're aware of, definitely coming 8 different signs. They will never occur again in our lifetime. Even if you could live for 100 years old, they're never going to happen again. And they're starting real soon. Here we go, number 1. We've got Comet Ison. Comet Ison is coming. You say, well, comets come all the time. Yes, they do. But not the brightest comet, not something that is predicted to be the brightest comet ever. That potentially, they say, NASA says, could be as bright as the moon. I think that would strike fear in people's hearts if they saw something as bright as a moon, 2 moons, and they didn't know that it was coming. It's going to be as bright as that? I don't know. I'm just quoting you what NASA said. They're touting this as the brightest comet of the century, the brightest comet of our lifetime. And guess what? It goes to perigee, or the closest point to the sun, on the 28th of November 2013. Look it up. God doesn't work on the Gregorian calendar. Look it up on the Hebrew calendar. What day is it? It's the first day of Hanukkah. We know that God works on His Hebrew calendar. It's no coincidence that this great light is going to come on the Feast of Lights. And it's only a matter of weeks away. In fact, Comet Ison is going to start becoming visible in September. It's like tomorrow. So we don't know what day, but that's what they predicted. Then it's going to get brighter and brighter. And it's going to get very close to the sun on the 28th of November 2013. Brightest comet ever. Interesting. 15th of April next year, we will have the first blood moon that occurs on a Jewish feast, that is Passover. And I'm going to give you a new name for the tetrad. The tetrad is 4 blood moons, consecutive blood moons, that fall on God's Jewish feasts. I'm going to give you a new term. This is a war tetrad. I've said to you before, I don't know what's going to happen. I have my belief that it's going to be related to the temple, but I do know one thing. Every time a tetrad came before that fell on God's feast, in the past century, a war started with Israel. And every time a war started with Israel, Israel won, and Israel took territory. So it looks like either the temple is going to be rebuilt, or Israel is going to take some major territory this time, because there are scriptures that say Israel is going to take its inheritance, going to take Jordan, possibly take parts of Saudi Arabia. They have barely scratched the land, the territory that was promised to Abraham. They're living on a sliver of land that is the size of the state of New Jersey. And everyone around them is bigger, more populated, has greater land mass, and they're all fighting to destroy this one little nation and trying to eat up its territory. And every time they start a war, Israel gains more territory. think Scotty from Eternal Rhythm Flow had this phrase. He said, every time the Palestinians start a war, Israel gains more. That's the fate. That's what's going to happen. But it looks like from Psalm 83 that Israel might actually suffer some casualty this time. They really escaped in the first Iraq war. They escaped in the second Iraq war. Many bombs Saddam Hussein lobbed at them, and very, very few casualties. But it looks like the next one is going to be disastrous. It's going to be a big war. So the tetrad's about to come. When it came in 1949, in the last century, the war had already started in 1948. This one is coming in 2014. It would not be violating the pattern if the war started anytime soon. And Obama is already looking for an excuse to go into Syria. This is how world wars start, by the way. You go into one nation, and then their allies counter, and then the allies counter, and then suddenly everyone's pulled in. If you haven't followed the news, Iran has already said, first of all, Syria says, if you attack us, we're going to attack Israel. It's got nothing to do with Israel. Israel's not attacking Syria, but they said if America attacks Syria, Syria will attack Israel. Then Iran says, if America attacks Israel, if America attacks Syria, Iran will attack Israel. Then Lebanon has said, if America attacks Syria, Lebanon will attack Israel. Can you see what's happening? This is how World War I started. I can do that another time and teach you another time. But people get pulled into a world war because of the allies and the treaties that they have with each other and because of their strategic interests. So something very disastrous is on our doorstep, and it could trigger at any time. And we're coming into a season where all the signs are pointing that now is probably the time. So the war tetrad is going to begin on the 15th of April, 2014. Then we have the second lunar eclipse on the 8th of October, 2014, a blood moon on Sukkot. That is the seventh feast of God in the Bible. Then we have a total solar eclipse on the 20th of March, 2015, which happens to be the first of Nisan. That is the religious New Year on God's calendar, and is considered by the Jewish rabbis a sign to the Gentiles. Could that be a possible date for, say, a rapture of the Gentile church? Very possible. Then again, any Feast of Trumpet, which is the New Year, the civil New Year, that's also a suitable date for the rapture. Then on the 4th of April, 2015, we have another blood moon, the third blood moon in the series, on Passover. Then on the 13th of September, 2015, we have a partial solar eclipse on, it's around Elul 29 and Tishri 1st. That's the end of the year and the beginning of the year. What's so big about that? Well, it happens to be the 7th anniversary of the last economic downturn. And that economic downturn was the 7th anniversary of the previous economic downturn. So if you look on the Gregorian calendar, you can't tell when the market will crash, but if you just looked on God's calendar, you say, Elul 29, yep, better sell those stocks before. Because on Elul 29, twice on a 7-year cycle, something disastrous happened. And on the next one, the next 7th anniversary, there's going to be a solar eclipse as well. Interesting. The fourth lunar eclipse of the tetrad will happen on the 28th of September 2015. It will be Sukkot, and it will be a supermoon. Now, a supermoon is when the moon gets very close because the lunar orbit is elliptical. Sometimes it's far, sometimes it's close. And so the size of the moon appears to be different depending on the time of year that you look at it. So a supermoon is very special and rare. Now you get a supermoon that is also a lunar eclipse. Very rare. But we have a supermoon that is a lunar eclipse on God's holy feast. Completely unprecedented. Something very special marked out in the sky saying this date is a super date. God created the sun, the moon, the earth, the stars to point to his Son, Jesus Christ. And this sign is a big sign. But we're not finished. Then we have the sign of the woman clothed with the sun, the moon at her feet, the 12 stars around her head, the sign of the constellation of Virgo rising from the vantage point of Jerusalem with all those elements in play on the 23rd of September 2017. And at first when I heard that, I said, well, that's very interesting. I mean, that's already very, very interesting, 2017. But it only dawned on me later, wait a second, 2017 is the Jubilee of the city of Jerusalem. The Jubilee is the 50th anniversary of Israel taking Jerusalem in 1967. And the Jubilee is a very holy time. In fact, it's a very joyful time. It's called the time of setting free. It's the time of liberation, the time of liberty, the time of letting debtors go free, the time of setting slaves to go free. Oh man, this is a very special time. Do you think God knows it's the Jubilee of Jerusalem? Yeah. The constellation Virgo is going to rise, fulfilling the sign in Revelation chapter 12. There'll be a sign in the sky, the woman clothed with the sun, the moon at her feet, 12 stars at her head. It happens to be the 50th anniversary of Jerusalem. We'll come back to that. And then on the 14th of May 2018, Israel will celebrate its Independence Day on the Gregorian calendar. But if you look on their Jewish calendar, it happens to be slightly earlier, on the 19th of April 2018. Either way, that will be a 70th anniversary of the State of Israel. And we know for the past 2 times, major things happened. When Israel was in Babylon 70 years, they were let go, they went free after 70 years. That's the whole point of Daniel's book and his prayer that God, 70 years are up, take us home. Ooh, hallelujah. Then the next time, they really rebelled. So instead of going home, their temple and their city was destroyed in 70 AD because they didn't believe in the Messiah. That's the only major sin that you could trace back to that time period. They crucified their own Messiah and rejected him, as he predicted. And he said, not one stone will be left upon another of the temple. Not the Temple Mount, not the Wailing Wall. Those stones remained there, but the temple, gone. After 70 years of being very patient, sending his son, all that was fulfilled. And the Jews were dispersed for nearly 2,000 years. We are coming up to the next 70-year mark. Exciting? Major signs? Not something we're making up, not something we can fudge. It's fixed in astronomy. But we're not done. 2017 is not only the 50th anniversary of Jerusalem, it's the 50th anniversary of Roswell, the most famous UFO incident. An incident where people believe that a spaceship crashed in New Mexico and there was a major government cover-up. If you study into it, it's amazing. There's more secrecy around Roswell than around American nuclear warheads. You need a higher level of security clearance to get any file on Roswell than you would to get information about America's military capability. Don't you think that's astounding? Something strange happened. Do we believe it happened exactly as the conspiracy people say? I don't know. That's why it's called a conspiracy. I don't know. But it's also the 50th anniversary of Roswell. 2017 will also be the 50th anniversary of the greatest archaeological find ever. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947. We're coming up to the 50th anniversary. It is also the 70th anniversary of the UN resolution which created the nation of Israel and made Jerusalem, instead of a Jewish capital, an international capital. That was UN Resolution 181, approved in November 1947, which arguably can be actually the birthday, the true birthday of the nation of Israel. Then we have a cycle going in 1947, 1967, and now 2017. Perfect cycle of 50 and a cycle of 70. God likes these numbers. If you don't know, get my book, The Divine Code, and read it, because I explain all those numbers in great details. If you haven't gotten a teaching on Revelation, we've done plenty of it, and I even have a summary called The Most Logical Timeline of Revelation. All right, that's all uploaded free on YouTube, but if you wanted to dig deeper, we have a whole series at discover.org.au for that. So here's what the sixth seal represents, and I believe that we're either already in it or we're just waiting any moment for it to open. All right? And yet, I don't believe it's the tribulation. Not yet. Not the time of tribulation at the time of Jacob's trouble. Revelation chapter 6, verse 12, I watched as the Lamb opened the sixth seal. Here is the order of events. Number one, a powerful earthquake struck. In the Greek, a mega quake. Maybe it was the Japanese tsunami. Maybe it was the Haiti earthquake, which was the most fatal earthquake in human history. 300,000 people died in that. So number one, a powerful earthquake. Number two, the sun turned as black as sackcloth made of hair, and the full moon turned as red as blood. Already explained that there's a very easy understanding of that. The sun is time to go dark every time that there is an eclipse. That's only possible from the vantage point of Earth. God made the distance of the Earth, the size of the moon, and all of those things to correlate so that we could have a perfect total solar eclipse. We're the only place in the universe that we're aware of that All right, we're going to be doing, again, a little teaching on the Hebrew roots of end-time prophecy. We believe that there's a context to the scriptures. Everything that Jesus said was that can see a total solar eclipse. Not only that, we also have lunar eclipses. And that's when the moon appears to turn red. All right? Second order of event. Third, we haven't talked much about the stars fell from the sky to the earth like figs, dropping from a fig tree when it is shaken by a strong wind. And we could conjecture about that, but we're not going to touch on it today. We just want to touch on those first two things. Number one, a powerful earthquake. People say, well, earthquakes happen all the time, but look at the graph. This is not a prophetic graph. This is the USGS graph of worldwide deadly and destructive earthquakes. And since the last 100 years, more than 100, is the Jewish Messiah. And this is what he said 2,000 years ago in Luke 21, verse 11. There will be great earthquakes in various places, famines, pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs. From where? From where? Okay, from heaven. That means look up. We're always looking down. Make sure we look up. That's what I'm going to try to direct your attention to tonight. Look up. God said in the generation before he returns, look up. Everyone say look up. Very good. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 to 13, we have the sixth seal open.